Alright, so in this Helldivers 2 video, what we're going to be doing is fully breaking down weapon customization. This is newly added in the most recent update, along with a full Illuminate invasion, as well as a host of other things. But this feature has been heavily requested by the community for quite a while. It was a prominent feature in Helldivers 1, and a lot of people didn't quite understand why it wasn't carried over. However, Arrowhead has finally listened and brought it into the game, and we're very, very excited. So let's go over all the systems involved and exactly how weapon customization works in Helldivers 2. So what is weapon customization within Helldivers 2? Essentially what it is it's really simple. It's very standard to what you've seen in other live service games that have this type of model. So you level up your weapons, you earn attachments and camos for them. The attachments will change the characteristics of the weapon. They have their downsides and their upsides depending on which attachments you choose. Now, currently, this is, in my opinion, a beta version of what this is going to be long term. I felt like they wanted to introduce this feature to some weapons and not all weapons, which is why we only see it on Primaries, and even on Primaries, it's limited in the functionality and the way it works. Now, the idea from what I've seen in the overview video of the patch and weapon customization that the devs released over on the Helldivers 2 official YouTube page, basically they were alluding to this, that they're going to be adding more attachments over time. They're going to be switching up how they work, changing stats, and all these various things like that. So it's more of like a beta of how this system's going to eventually run in the long run. But initially, like I mentioned, we do have it on specifically primary weapons, and it's only select primary weapons where this is fully expanded upon. So we have the following categories for weapon attachments within the game. We have optics, underbarrels, magazines, and muzzles. Now each of these once again do alter how the weapon works depending on what you want to use. So as an example, if you have a drum magazine that you want to apply to your weapon, you do get overall a higher capacity. However, you do lose ergonomics, and you also lose backup magazines. I guess the idea around it is the weapon is heavier because you're using a drum magazine, and you're having larger magazines, so you have less space. So they're going for that realism idea that they have talked about so heavily. There's also other examples, like you can actually earn iron sights down the road on some weapons, so that way you can actually increase your ergonomics overall, as well as there's foregrips and all sorts of other things that you can do to overall enhance the weapon's handling and whatnot. So it's quite extensive in the way that they actually offered it in the game. So weapon customization is actually unlocked at level 10. I don't have any way to prove this because I don't have a lower level account, but they did confirm this on the little overview video that they did on the Helldivers YouTube page. So I'm going to link that actually down in the description so you can watch that on your own. But yeah, it does start at level 10 for those of you that are new to the game. So what attachments are available on which weapon? How does the whole thing work? So it just depends. Like every category has their different quirks. Like for example, with the AR, some weapons have magazine enhancements and some don't. An example being the Liberator Penetrator is a medium hitting weapon, and it does actually get an extended magazine of a drum mag, which is very, very strong overall, and it has all the normal attachments from the sighting options to the underbarrel options and the muzzle options. However, if you go down to something like the Adjudicator, it actually does not get any magazine increases, which is a little disappointing overall, because that was one of the biggest complaints with the ARs in general, is that the ammo economy is pretty rough, and the fact we didn't get any type of magazine extension is pretty annoying. And then if you go to something like the Liberator Concussive, you can actually lower the magazine size and get more magazines, as well as higher ergonomics and so forth. So it actually is going to start off with a drum mag and go down from there. You have the similar situation within things like the shotguns, the SMGs, like the Pummeler now has a drum magazine on it, which is actually going to make this weapon a little bit more viable if they can actually fix the concussing things of it, but that's pretty cool. But you also have things like the pump shotguns, which don't have anything outside of sighting options, but you do actually get some better options, like in the breaker shotgun, for example, which I'm currently working on. Like you get the half choke, which can actually, you know, make the weapon a much more tighter spread, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But you do have magazine options here as well, so you can actually get a drum magazine on a breaker shotgun, which makes this thing absolutely ridiculous at the loss of a couple of extra magazines, which you can offset with something like Siege Ready, which again we'll talk about more in just a moment. But yeah, that's pretty much the general idea of how that works, is that not every weapon has all the same attachments. Now there are quite a few weapons that don't have attachments at all, starting with the energy weapons. They do have scoping options. I guess you can call that an attachment, but it's not really anything. The Blitzer has that as well. You also have like things like that on, or you also don't have any at all on things like Torture. And currently not in the game are suppressors. We don't have any type of suppressors. I imagine that's one of the things that they're going to add later and they're working on, but we've seen possibly some suppressors being added in for some of the marksman rifles more specifically. And also to add into that, the kill zone weapons that were introduced, like this accelerator rifle, as well as this SMG and whatnot, they cannot be edited or add any customization. This is a thing that they're going to be doing for any collaboration weapons that come into the game in the future, so there is that as well. So leveling your weapons is fairly simple. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to go into a dive, you're going to run your dive normally, and the XP you earn from that is going to be applied to your weapon. So if you earn 1000 XP, 1000 XP is going to be applied to your weapon. Now this does have diminishing returns as it does with any game, so the higher the level it gets, the less the XP is impacted by it. What I've heard is that at level 20 there's basically a huge slowdown right now. I imagine that might get tweaked, but for now it's going to be really slow to level your weapons once you hit that level 20 mark. And I know a lot of you are looking for a speed run way to get this done as fast as possible to earn some of those drum mag attachments and things like that. Blitz missions are obviously the best in my opinion because you can clear those quickly within 5 to 8 minutes. Eradicate missions are the similar, but you do earn less overall XP from eradicate missions, even though you could technically finish them faster. So I would stick with blitz missions if you're really trying to power level these weapons, but in general you could just earn levels on this while you're playing the game. Now one thing of note is that requisition slips are what is used to upgrade these weapons, so you will get plenty of these if you're playing the game normally, so it's not really a huge deal, especially if you have everything unlocked. However, for those people that are looking to actually level these things up as they're getting other things, it can be quite expensive when you're actually trying to get stratagems as well as you're trying to unlock attachments to your weapons. So there is something to consider there. So the biggest question with this whole system is what weapons are actually the most impacted by weapon customization? Now, in my opinion, the weapons that are most impacted are the ones with the higher recoil, maybe some of the ones that have lower magazines, which is why the fact that there aren't a lot of drum magazines available on the ARs is why that makes it kind of frustrating. But something like the Liberated Penetrator is going to be greatly impacted by the system because it already has a great recoil control overall. It just suffers from a lower magazine. You get 60 rounds now. That's pretty freaking huge for this weapon because that dramatically transformed the Liberated Concussive when it came out so long ago. And I imagine this is going to dramatically transform this weapon when you actually unlock all that stuff. You can actually get the same thing for the Liberated Carbine, even though it is light penetration. Getting that 60 round magazine has been something that I've wanted on this weapon for quite a while, and I'm definitely going to be running this a little bit more. Plus I can actually change the camo because I don't really like the camouflage, and I can actually change this to something like a solid green or something like that, which is great, but that is more of a cosmetic thing. As well as the SMGs are going to actually benefit from this as well. Now they don't have magazine options for most of the SMGs, which again is kind of disappointing, but something like the Reprimand is going to greatly benefit from these foregrip options to have that recoil better controlled, as well as the muzzle attachments are going to also increase your recoil control. So I can imagine the Reprimand becoming a laser beam whenever you're actually going to add these attachments. Same thing for the Knight SMG. It's going to also have plenty of attachments to help with that recoil control. And then lastly, I feel like the shotguns, especially the ones that are the auto shotguns, are actually going to benefit as well. Now you can actually offset the lower magazine count once again with the Breaker Incendiary if you are willing to take a little less ammo at a time. So you can basically put on the lower magazine to go back to 16, but you do get 7 mags, which is great. Or with the Breaker, the regular Breaker, you can actually go crazy and add this drum magazine and be able to increase the capacity up to 26, which has been a big hindrance on the Breaker, and you can offset the magazine's loss with something like Siege Ready, which is going to be good. Or you can just go absolutely insane and run something like a short magazine with the Breaker Spray and Play and get 16 extra magazines, which is absolutely ludicrous. Or you can get 13 magazines in the slot. But the biggest thing with shotguns that I wanted to mention here just on the forefront is this: they get an absolute insane buff, and it's not really, I don't know if this is going to stay like this, but it's going to be overpowered if it doesn't. If you notice with the muzzles with the shotguns, they don't lose any stats. They actually do nothing but get a tighter spread, as you can see on the far right. They get a tighter spread, but they don't lose any stats. So there's no current downsides to running any of the muzzle options on the shotguns, which is going to be really ridiculous, especially on something like the Breaker. You can actually run this half choke or even this full choke, and you're going to be absolutely lasering people with this weapon. It's going to be really, really good, and I can't wait to actually unlock these, which is why I'm actually working on the breaker first. The one last weapon that could see some really good impact from the system is the scythe. Now, the other two options, the double edge and the sickle, do not get any extra options outside of sighting. However, the scythe does get some extra options, which is cool. You do get an underbarrel, which is great for ergonomics, but the better thing is you do get some heat sink expanders. You get some that make your heat sink last a significant amount of time longer, which is going to be more DPS over time at the loss of a magazine, but who really cares? This thing's unlimited, right? And then you get another one, this disposition heat sink, that's going to allow your thing to cool off faster, which is really cool. So I do like that we do get some heating options here to be able to lessen the amount of heat that this generates. So it could be really strong, especially since this thing was already pretty good, but it didn't last long enough in my opinion. So I feel like the scythe is also going to be a weapon that's going to benefit very well from the system. All right, so that's the meat and potatoes of what weapon customization is from a detail perspective, but overall, what are my thoughts on this initial implementation of weapon customization? Now, I'm trying to be fair because I understand Arrowhead has some future plans for this in terms of adding more attachments, in terms of maybe shuffling some things around. Maybe they'll probably add some extended magazines to ARs and SMGs, which I feel like are desperately needed. We can obviously see the big changes in this on the Liberator Penetrator as well as the Pummeler. Having those magazines expanded, even losing a few attributes, is huge. I mean, because that makes those weapons so much more viable in my opinion. So just taking that initial thought of saying that it's kind of a beta of weapon customization, and I hate to word it that way, they didn't word it that way, I am, because I don't feel like this is the final thing. I would say it's fine. I'm not excited about it as much as I was when I first heard about it coming to the game. I feel like it still needs some work. It would have been nice to have this maybe earlier in the game's life cycle, but it's here now, so judging it as what it is, let's go for the good first of it. So overall, I'm just happy it's in the game, giving us something else to grind for, especially people like me and all the other creators or any other people who have been playing the game for over a year. You've exhausted your progression, you have max resources and things like that. Just having something to work for, whether it's camo grinding, whether it's earning attachments, is just great. That's always going to be something fun for gamers to do in a game, so I am really excited for that. And the grind is nothing crazy. Now, I don't know, I haven't really maxed out a weapon to level 20, but I've seen people trying to do it past level 20, and it is pretty much a grind. I think 25 is probably the level cap. I don't know. Once we get there, I'll let you know. But overall, it doesn't seem like the grind is too terribly crazy, but we'll end up seeing. Now, I am grateful to see weapons like the Reprimand, the Liberator Penetrator, the Breaker Shotgun, and things like that are going to really benefit from the system. That is just absolutely fantastic to see that this will actually impact a lot of weapons very positively. However, I would have liked to have seen some alterations in terms of the way we could play with other weapons, such as, for example, like the Double Edge. Maybe it would have been nice to have a heat sink option to make that a little bit better, or maybe even something like some of the laser weapons. It would have been cool to have some different options with them, and hopefully over time they add some more unique options in terms of being able to make those weapons feel more unique. But in terms of just in the good category, I do like how it is making some weapons better overall, and that's a very good thing. The camos are really nice. They're very limited in terms of how many options we have, but I love every single one of them for the most part. I can't wait to add that Vulcan color one, or the yellow one, that's going to be able to make my weapons yellow and black. That's going to be really cool, and some of the weapons are just going to look great in all black, and that's one of the things I've really wanted to customize the look of my weapons for quite a while. Hopefully they give us the same thing with armors, but too soon to tell. And then lastly, I do agree that it is nice that they left room for more attachments to come into the game. They left room to add just more stuff to the system overall. Looking forward to seeing what they do with secondaries, as well as maybe even add some grenade customization. And obviously I really want them to do some sort of armor customization in terms of being able to change passes or something. So I don't know, we'll see what they end up doing in the future, but for now I'm just grateful to have base weapon customization in the game. So as for the downsides, there's nothing probably that you wouldn't expect. They just have got to fine-tune the system a little bit more. I feel like some weapons just got gypped in this whole thing, meaning that they were not given the things they needed to be successful. Like the Adjudicator is pretty good, right? It's not a bad weapon overall, but it desperately needed bigger magazines. Now, I'm not saying it needed a drum magazine, right? But it could have had some sort of extended magazine, maybe to bring it up to 45 rounds as opposed to 30 or something. I think that one thing that was missed was it looked like it was all or nothing with a lot of these attachments. Like, for example, if they were adding magazines, right? You either got all 3 magazines or nothing. They didn't have to do that. What they could have done is they could have maybe added one version of extended mag to some weapons and maybe 2 versions to other weapons. Because I don't think it's quite fair that the Liberator Penetrator, even though it is a lower hitting, or it is a softer hitting medium pen weapon, got a drum magazine, whereas the rest of the medium weapons in the game did not get a drum magazine. I thought that was kind of ridiculous. And also I just kind of wanted to see it more spread out throughout the rest of the weapons, and I hope that this again becomes a thing in the future where we get more attachments for more weapons. But I think the one thing they have to do first is they have to not make it just an all or nothing thing with each of the categories. If we just give one magazine, one sighting option to some weapons, that's perfectly fine. We don't need all the options available for each weapon. That's definitely not needed in my opinion. Another negative thing too, and again, this goes back to the progression thing, I hope that they fix the leveling process for it, because the fact that it takes so long to level from 20 to 25 is pretty ridiculous in my opinion. It's gonna take quite a while, especially since some of the better attachments are locked away at the higher levels, so I really do hope they adjust that. But yeah, I guess that's my biggest thing with this whole system, and I go back to my original thought when I started this tirade a little bit, is that it's just fine. I'm not mega excited about this system. It's pretty simple, it's nothing crazy, which is perfectly fine. We don't need a super in-depth, super complicated system, but I just want a little bit more, and I know we will get more. That's why I'm saying it's fine. I'm trying to have it from the lens of this is a introduction to weapon customization, but I'm a little nervous that we're gonna get too locked into some things, and I wish they would. I kind of hope they open up flexibility a little bit more with it. For example, like one thing I was thinking about was how cool would that be to change the penetration level of a weapon from light to medium, or lower it the other way from medium to light, and you get certain benefits from going either direction and certain downsides from going either direction. How cool would that be by being able to change the type of bullets it shoots or something? So I don't know, like I hope that they have some ideas like that, because I don't want it to stay this simple. I want it to expand a little bit more in the future, and my worry is just based off what I'm seeing is that it's going to be mostly this with some other things sprinkled in between. But I don't want to be too negative. I'm trying to again stay with the frame of mind that this is a introduction to weapon customization and not the final idea of what the system's going to look like in the next year or so, for example. Anyways, guys, that's my full overview breakdown of weapon customization in Helldivers 2. Let me know what you guys think about this system down in the comments below, and let me know what you want changed and what you want to see more expanded upon in the future with weapon customization, and what you're waiting for next for the customization category within the game. Anyways, guys, I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.